Heads up, because you're in the Hoodwood. I'm the black man at KJ Green, welcoming you to Sports from the Hoodwood for March 15th, 2019. Coming up this week, big moves in NFL free agency. Have the Browns went from punching bag to powerhouse? Are the Warriors coming together or coming apart ahead of the playoffs? Will Major League Baseball mess things up with their rules? March Madness in full effect. Will we get deserving teams getting the shaft? All that, Phat Dap Head Slap, and a multitude of info and opinions on this jam-packed edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Fasten your seatbelts and let's go.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where we thought the groundhog was going to get a reprieve from the hit that was put out on him, but then the weather turned cold again, and he is running for his life. My name is KJ Green, and welcome back to the Hoodwood for this third weekend of March 2019, and March Madness is in full effect. Wall-to-wall basketball on all over the place, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But first, we will start out with the goings-on in the NFL, and they have been a lot of goings-on. At 4 p.m. on Wednesday, the 2019 NFL calendar year began and the free agency frenzy commenced. Now, the bigger deals happened before the actual opening of free agency. Nick Foles going to Jacksonville. Odell Beckham Jr. was traded from the Giants to the Browns for a first and a third, and safety Jabril Peppers. The day before, the Steelers traded disenchanted wide receiver Antonio Brown to the Raiders for a third and a fifth round pick. Now, I think both the Steelers and the G-Men should be sitting in the dunce corner with dunce caps on. And we can look into it differently, look into the reasons why here. Now, the Giants got a 1 and a 3 for OBJ less than a year after signing him to a 5-year, $90 million contract. Giants GM Dave Gettleman said just 2 weeks ago that the Giants didn't sign OBJ to trade him. Yeah, about that. Now, the Giants have an aged quarterback in Eli Manning. No real plans to draft another quarterback to step into his breach. They have no real scoring punch outside of Saquon Barkley. You got to feel bad for this kid, no? The Giants are looking like they are fully committing to a rebuild. And this could be a long and painful one. The G-Man will need a franchise quarterback real soon. I mean, let's keep it on. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100. Eli Manning is 37. I beg your pardon. He's 38. He just turned 38 in January. So he's not a spring chicken. And they don't have a game-breaking wide receiver. I mean, getting Golden Tate is not a game-breaking wide receiver. Golden Tate is not OBJ. And Barkley is going to basically get killed, as he will be like how opponents were against Adrian Peterson in his Vikings heyday, when they didn't have a dependable quarterback and they didn't have a field-stretching wide receiver. They load up the box knowing that they can go after the running back and basically line up against the wide receivers with single coverage impunity. Keep in mind now that the Browns will also be a vastly improved team. That first and third round pick are not going to be very high up in the round. This is a team that has jumped exponentially as a team that an improvement. This is a team that is going to be really good. And these first and third round draft choices that they're giving the Giants are not going to be top 5, top 10. Heck, they might not even be top 20. Add further that the Giants are also eating a good portion of OBJ's contract. $21.5 million will be paid to Beckham in cash. That's $5.5 million on the Giants' 2019 cap, and $16 million in dead money on their 2019 cap. That's just money that is going of no use and of a player that they're not using that is going to be racking up good numbers for the Browns. You know, I would love to try that trade on Madden and see how fast it would get rejected. The computer would be like, oh hell no, we ain't doing that. But for some reason, Dave Gettleman of the Giants thinks that's a good deal. And as I reiterated before, I'll reiterate, Golden Tate is not a suitable replacement for OBJ. He's a good wide receiver, but he's not a field stretcher. He is not a game breaker. Giants apologists, you have no excuse for this. Big Blue has wrecked itself. It's not the Big Blue Wrecking Crew. The Big Blue have wrecked itself. Now I'll get back to the Browns in a minute, but let's look at the Steelers' personnel moves. The Steelers traded Antonio Brown to the Raiders for a 3rd and 5th round pick from the Raiders. A 3rd and a 5th to the Raiders for one of the top receivers in the game. Now, it was no secret that AB wanted out of Pittsburgh, but the trades were puzzling because it was rumored that the Pats were offering a 2nd and a 4th. At least I would have went back to the Raiders and said, make me that same deal. I would have asked for one of those first-round picks that the Raiders have. The Raiders have 3 ones. The one that they have is at the 4. And they also have the one they got for Khalil Mack. And they also have the one that they got for Amari Cooper. They have 3 ones and a high 2. And you're telling me Mike Mayock is that good of a negotiator where he got a 3 and a 5? You're telling me the Steelers couldn't get any of those? What were the Steelers thinking? And now to make it even worse, Le'Veon Bell signs a free agent deal with the Jets. The Jets, for crying out loud. I thought he'd been better suited going to the Colts, but I digress. It seems like Bell didn't even care about the money. He signed a 4-year, $52.5 million deal with $35 million of that guaranteed, which was less money than the Steelers were able to offer under their franchise tag that they had for Le'Veon Bell from last year. This is confirming what I've suspected all along. Being in Pittsburgh is not the football Valhalla that Steeler fans purported to be, and that Ben Roethlisberger is insufferable as a quarterback and a team leader. AB and Big Ben obviously did not get along. And the Steelers also were overusing Bell to the point that they were burning him out. He had over 400 touches as a running back in 2017. For a young running back of Le'Veon Bell's ability and skill, they were putting way too much offensive burden on him. Now, the Steelers have essentially lost 2 of their best offensive components for peanuts. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster is going to find life pretty hard as a wide receiver that gets the main defensive focus now. And James Conner, he's a good, serviceable running back. And he played very well in Bell's absence. But the question remains, how good is James Conner going to be when he is the focus of the Steelers' running game? And defenses know they don't have to worry about Le'Veon Bell. He's in Gotham. We're going to see how things are going to shake out in Pittsburgh. Now, that all said, I still don't like the move of Le'Veon Bell to the Jets. They're still getting young Sam Darnold acclimated to the pro game, and I feel like the Jets will do the same thing the Steelers have done. Lean on Bell heavily when their offense bogs down. And it's going to get really ugly in Pittsburgh before it gets any better. You can make book on that. And the Jets will improve, but it will be slower than many people expect. Now, finally, how did the Browns do this? How did they manage this? How did they go from 1-31 punching bag over the last 2 years previous to 2018 to becoming a potential powerhouse in less than a year? Baker Mayfield may be brash and boorish, but he might be the franchise quarterback that the Browns have been searching for the last 20 years. He also has young Nick Chubb in his backfield. He also will have, for the second half of the season, Kareem Hunt, who will serve an 8-game suspension for violation of the conduct policy, but he's going to be fresh for the Browns in the back half of the season. Baker Mayfield will have options out of the backfield. And also, his wide receivers, Jarvis Landry on one end, OBJ on the other end, veteran receivers that can make a young quarterback look good. This team has been back in the NFL 20 years, hasn't made the playoffs since 2002. They haven't had a winning season since 2007. But the days of the Browns being the pushover are done. Book it. No longer can the AFC North count on 2 wins for the Browns as rock solid. The Browns will be a tough out every week. This is a team with offenses that is, on paper, dynamic. And a sneaky good, young, hungry defense. Now, these savvy moves have put the pressure squarely on rookie head coach Freddie Kitchens. But unlike his counterpart in Cincinnati, he has been handed a massively talented team. This is going to be a very, very interesting division to watch. The AFC North, the Ravens have done very little other than signing Earl Thomas. That's going to be an interesting dynamic. The Bengals are puzzling in their moves. And the Steelers are just as bad, giving away 2 of their most valuable components and not getting that much in return. This is going to be a very interesting situation in the AFC North. The Browns are set to make a deep run to make the playoffs and possibly win a couple of games. But that's still at least 5-6 months away, and there's still a lot of things that need to be set up for the Browns to do that. But it will be interesting to see. We will take our first time out of the day, come back, and talk about the Golden State Warriors. Are they coming together at the right time with Boogie Cousins as a focal point of the offense? Or are they quietly falling apart and are ripe for the taking? We will take a timeout. Sports from the Hoodwood returns after this timeout.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood. I'm KJ Green, and don't worry, I have a lot of thoughts on the conference tourneys that are coming up. That'll be in the next segment. But let's look at the NBA and the pros, where there's 15 games left in the season for the 2-time defending NBA champion Golden State Warriors. And one has to ponder, are the Warriors still the team to beat in the NBA? Now, right now, they do have the 3rd best record in the NBA. But they're only a game and a half ahead of the young, hungry Nuggets, who won an absolute thriller last night. Nikola Jokic hitting a buzzer beater against the Mavericks. And the Nuggets are hot on the Warriors' trail for that top seed in the West. Now, which Warriors team is going to show up? Team that got throttled at home by Boston. Took an awful beating at Oracle from the up-and-down Boston Celtics just a few days ago. One of 5 20-point home losses that the Warriors have suffered at Oracle. It's a bad way to close that venerable arena since they're moving across the bay to the Chase Center in San Francisco next fall. Which team will show up? The team that was embarrassed by the long since eliminated Phoenix Suns? Or will this be the Warriors that pushed aside the aforementioned Nuggets in their last two meetings by 17 and 31 points and won a grimy, gritty game in Houston on Wednesday night? With Boogie Cousins, not Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant sat out that game with a bum foot. Boogie Cousins came on strong in place of Kevin Durant and has given the Warriors an exciting new dimension on their very high-powered offense. Don't look now, but I think the Dubs were actually playing possum most of the season. They were playing possum on everybody, winning just enough to stay on top, but learning that hard lesson of that 73-win team that went balls to the wall the entire season, and I think ran out of gas by the time they came against the Cavaliers. That 73-win Warriors team should have beaten that Cavs team handily and not gone 7 games. But you had the Draymond Green suspension. You had Steph Curry kicked out of a game. Just enough. The scales tipped just enough for the Cavaliers to steal that series. To be perfectly honest, the Warriors should have won the last 4 NBA titles. But the thing about the Warriors, as opposed to other teams that have won the NBA title and having to defend it, they know better how to pace themselves. The Dubs might not even win 60 games this season, much less 65 or 70. But with a month to go, if the projected seeds hold out, we will have some intriguing matchups out west. The Dubs are projected to play the Clips. Now, these are two teams that have no love for each other. Denver versus Utah is a fascinating matchup in the Mountain Time Zone. Oklahoma City and San Antonio could have the makings of a trap matchup for the Thunder. And Houston-Portland could be a high-scoring 7-game series. And that's just out west. The 3-4-5 slots in the East keep changing. So whether it's Indiana-Boston, Philly-Boston, or Indiana-Philly, book it for 7 games, I think. Now, Milwaukee and Toronto shouldn't really be tested in the first round, but they could be facing the aforementioned Pacers, Sixers, or Celtics, who will be mammoth second-round headaches. Getting back to the Warriors, they have lost some games that have been really puzzling. I know Steph Curry was out for a few games, and they've had, I don't want to say personnel issues, but it's a team that they're kind of sloughing along. At 46-21, they are comfortably in first in the Pacific. Winning the division is not going to be a problem. But they've basically been playing 500 ball for the last about month. They haven't strung together back-to-back wins in about a month. I'm looking at their schedule and I'm going, okay, where's the legendary win? They were on a 5-game winning streak in early February, but since that 5-game winning streak, they have alternated wins and losses, and with the exception of their disastrous trip into Florida where they lost to Miami on a buzzer beater and got throttled by Orlando, they've been trading off wins and losses pretty much the balance of the last month. But I still say that the Warriors are playing possum. I think when the time is right, when it's go time, they will flip the switch and put it on everybody. I still think that out west, even though it will not be a cakewalk, that the Warriors are still the team to beat in the West, if not in the NBA altogether. It's their title. You're going to have to take it from them. And with Boogie Cousins all of a sudden playing a more prominent role, the Dubs are looking very, very good. And I said when they signed DeMarcus Cousins, I was pretty sure that was going to make this team even more dangerous. Now, Durant is still day to day, and like we've always said, everybody's day to day if you really want to get to it. But the Warriors will win, say, 55 games. The way they've been playing, they'll kind of putter to the finish. They'll still have the number one seed in the West. And the road to the NBA Finals will still have to go through Oakland, even though the Oracle Center has not been the house of horrors that it's usually been for visiting teams. But I still think it's going to be tough for teams to beat the Warriors 4 times in 7 games. Be an interesting look at in itself. Stay tuned. We'll take another timeout, come back, and look at Major League Baseball. Have the rule changes that they've put in place, will they hurt the game or actually make it more palatable? Sports from the Hoodwood rolls on after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the Internet's premier location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinion on the world of sports. Here now, the man with 100% certified fresh taste, your host, KJ Green.
We are back in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green, and we are getting ready for opening day. Major League Baseball's 150th season is just around the corner, and it's actually going to be starting in Japan. The A's and the Mariners are going to play 2-game series in the Tokyo Dome and then come back stateside and finish out their regular season, their spring training schedule. The Mariners going back to Seattle and the A's going back to the Bay Area to play against the Giants. But then the season will begin in earnest on Thursday, March 28th. Now, with that being said, Major League Baseball is trying to, if you will, tweak some of its rules to make the game more, I don't want to say palatable, but it's going to be something where they're trying to make the game more streamlined. They're having this whole 3-batter minimum, which I don't like. I mean, you're going to have where you're going to have knowing a reliever is going to come in, and you're going to have a manager switch up their lineup to get the better hitting matchups. And of course, the pitching team can't respond. They can't change their players, their pitchers that, they have to have that face 3 batters, which I particularly don't like. Now, some of the other changes that they're putting in, they are changing the inning breaks from 2 minutes and 5 seconds in local games and 2 minutes and 25 seconds in national games to 2 minutes. And the commissioner's office is going to review this and see if they can eliminate a few more seconds. So basically, it's going to be fast, fast, fast. Now, the MLB is also changing things up for the All-Star game. They're going to do the old All-Star vote where you had the ballots where you go to a Major League Baseball game and fill out a ballot. And then late June or July will be like an election day where the top 3 vote getters at each position, which you figure the regular ballots are going to be like primaries, and then the big election will be right before the All-Star game to determine the All-Star starters. And then this is something I don't like. In the All-Star game, any All-Star game that goes extra innings starts with a runner on second. So it's almost like they're forcing the other team to keep the runner from scoring, not put a man on and move him around the bases. And then also the home run derby, which is becoming increasingly Major League Baseball's showcase event in All-Star game festivities. They're increasing the total player prize money for the home run derby to $2.5 million. The winner of the home run derby will receive $1 million outright. Now, they're trying to make more of an incentive to get the bigger names, your Giancarlo Stantons, your Mike Trouts, your Bryce Harpers, your Chris Davises, into this home run derby. But you're going to have a lot of these players going, nah, I don't want to be in this home run derby, mess up my swing. I still remember Jose Abreu absolutely going off at Comerica Park back, I think it was 2005. He was hitting home runs like they were going out of style. After the home run derby, he slumped badly. You want to see the biggest names on the biggest stage. That goes without saying. But it just, I don't know, it just seems artificial, created. You're creating excitement. You're trying to build something up, add extra excitement. But it's sacrificing the sport itself. Also, the number of mound visits per team is being reduced from 6 to 5. You didn't see a lot of mound visits anyway, but it was like when they change the pitchers, they usually change them in the middle of an inning. Next year, the roster size from opening day to August 31st will increase from 25 to 26 players. And then the 40-man active roster for September 1st will be eliminated. So from September 1st to the end of the regular season, all clubs will carry 28 players. So that almost guarantees that the September call-ups will be eliminated. And then also, the number of pitchers a club can carry on the active roster will be capped at a certain number. They're still working on that. And then two-way players can start as a position player or as a designated hitter. This is going to get really confusing. I mean, they changed the disabled list to the injured list. I'm still going to call it the disabled list. But it's going to mess up the continuity of the game. It's going to mess up rosters. It's going to be very confusing for the average fan and the hardcore fan, like such as myself. I think it's going to mess up the game. I think it's going to mess up the flow of the game. I think that it's going to be too much minutiae and detail oriented. And baseball has always prided itself about being a game that's timeless, without a clock, that's not in a hurry. Now it seems the game is in a big hurry. The attention span, like I said, the short attention span theater mentality of the modern sports fan doesn't seem to jibe with Major League Baseball being a timeless game. And Major League Baseball wanting to stay on the cutting edge, top of the mind awareness, if you will, is throwing things against the wall, hoping that they'll stick. I like Rob Manfred. I think he is a great commissioner. He's one of the few commissioners that have been in charge of baseball as far back as I can remember the game that seem like they have a real feel for the game. Not since the late great Bart Giamatti has there been a more in tune commissioner than Rob Manfred. I didn't care much for Bud Selig. He tried, but I always saw him as the owner of the Milwaukee Brewers that pushed his way into being the commissioner. I didn't like his predecessor, Fay Vincent. I thought he was a bully. Someone who got the job by acclamation after the untimely death of Bart Giamatti that was fueled by the whole Pete Rose scandal. That was 30 years ago. Wow. Peter Ueberroth was full of himself, as was Bowie Q. But Rob Manfred has turned into the type of commissioner and steward of the game that is taking Major League Baseball in a positive direction. Implementing these rule changes may not all be his idea, but I don't think they're good ideas. We will take another timeout, come back with my thoughts on March Madness. Are there going to be teams that are going to get the shaft come Selection Sunday? Sports from the Hoodwood rolls on after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
You are in the Hoodwood. My name's KJ Green. Welcome back. Now, there will be no Hoodwood Hot 5 this week with the conference tourneys well underway. I'll just rant about who I think should be in and should be out. You have teams like Belmont, Furman, Wright State, UNC Greensboro should be in, but more than likely won't. You know I got my love for my mid-majors. I've always said that these mid-major teams are the type of teams that the so-called Power 5 or Power 6 or Power 7, if you want to include the Big East and the American in the equation, rarely, if ever, want to tangle with. You're not going to see a team like Wofford or Belmont or Furman on any of these major conference team schedules. They won't go to their arenas, and they sure won't bring these teams to their arenas to play. These are teams that you just don't want to face. And the thing I hate about the NCAA and their tournament selection committee is they will pit these smaller teams against one another in the first rounds of the tournament to try for them to just more or less eliminate each other. You won't see, if you saw a Wofford, for example, who's already punched their ticket to the dance as, say, an 11 seed. Or they might even just award them a 5 seed. But then, who do they put in as a 12 seed? Oh my goodness, another smaller school. Maybe up Northern Kentucky. As a 5-12 matchup to see them basically wreck themselves fighting each other to get run over by a middling major team the next game. Now you have a team like St. Mary that played bid stealer by winning the West Coast Conference tournament Monday night, beating the number 1 team in Gonzaga. They've made the West Coast Conference a multi-bid conference. St. Mary was not going to go to the tournament unless they won that auto seed. Gonzaga is long since been in. But the bid that they stole by beating the Bulldogs, I refuse to call Gonzaga the Zags. You won't hear me say that. But the bid that they stole by beating Gonzaga rather handily in Vegas earlier this week is more important of doom for the Belmont Bruins, Furman Paladins, Wright State Raiders, or UNC Greensboro Spartans. I thought the Pac-12 was a one big conference, and Washington would have to play their way out to miss it. But so far right now, they are safe. And Arizona's coming on with a closing rush that the committee is looking for to give them an excuse to let Power 5 teams in. You go to the Big 12, and it's 5 teams that you don't question being in. Kansas, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas State, and Baylor. They're all in and safe, no matter what happens in the Sprint Center in Kansas City this weekend. But you have teams like TCU and Oklahoma, which people are still saying should be in. Last 4 in. Jerry Palmer said last 4 in TCU. I mean, TCU had at least an honorable loss to Kansas State and have a pair of wins against super safe Iowa State, but they don't have anything else on their resume, and they're a middling team at best. Oklahoma did itself no favors with a stunning collapse against a bad West Virginia team who is still hanging around the Big 12 tournament. They're still in it. But Oklahoma at least has banked wins against Wofford, who is already in, and Florida, which is, I would think they would win a tiebreaker against Florida because they've beaten them on a neutral floor. I don't, but the committee loves its big name teams. They'll get a double-digit seed, and that's where you'll find in the SEC, you'll find Alabama. They'll be heading, I'm thinking, to Dayton in the first 4. As long as they don't get blown out by UK on Friday, they should be safe. They should be going. Avery Johnson's team will likely get a bid, even with 14 losses, because they're in the SEC. Yeah, Phil mentioned Florida. Yeah, I think are right on the cut line. But as long as if they can hang tough with a distracted LSU, they should be safe. Now, unlike some previous years, the SEC has plenty of no doubt, no joke teams that will claim bids. You have the usual suspects of UK, Tennessee, Ole Miss, in spite of their loss to Alabama, Mississippi State, and Auburn, that are 5 teams that are way, way safe. Now, the only team in the American that really has some work to do is Temple, but I think as long as they play decently against Wichita State, they should be safe. Beating Houston and Central Florida gave the Owls a pair of quad 1 wins, which gives them plenty of street cred to say that they have a decent enough resume. And of course, you have Cincinnati, who I think is safe, along with Houston and Central Florida. The American can send and should send 4 teams. But again, as long as Temple doesn't lose to Wichita State, they shouldn't sweat. And please, 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 do not get me started on the Big Ten. I know. Sparty, Iowa, Michigan, Purdue, Whiskey, and Maryland. Even though Maryland fell badly against Nebraska, I think those teams are safe. 6 teams from the Big Ten, I think, are enough. Ohio State, get out of here. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear you. Ohio State and Indiana had a 7-game losing streak, and you think they're NCAA tourney bound? Are you serious? If my beloved Bearcats lost 7 in a row, you wouldn't see them hide nor hair nowhere near the NCAA consideration for the tournament, unless they won their conference tournament outright. And what did Indiana do? Oh, Indiana has a pair of wins against Michigan State. They lost to Ohio State. They're done. Archie Miller, don't call us. We'll call you. The Hoosiers lived on that supposed cred that sweeping Sparty gave them. Now, had they beaten the Bucks, I would have loved to have seen Sparty eviscerate Indiana like they eviscerated Ohio State. Now, you go to the Big East, you have Marquette and Villanova. Those are the two safe teams. Those teams really ain't got to worry about nothing. Even though Villanova played like they had no clue for a while, I think the defending champs will get that chance to defend their title in the tournament. That said, those are the only safe teams in the Big East. Seton Hall could play its way safe with a win over Marquette. After that, well, you got a lot of middling, iffy teams. Much like the Pac-12, but without the Pac-12's supposed pedigree. Now, Creighton is cooked. So was Georgetown after early exits. St. John's needed not to take a bad loss, but got their backs blown out by Marquette and MSG. Not a good sign. Xavier? The Muskies were left for dead a month ago. They had a 5-game losing streak and really looked like they had played their way out. But they finished with a rush and a doable win over Villanova on Friday, combining with a good show Saturday night, win or lose, should be just enough to get them over the finish line into the tournament. Heck, it might even get them a trip to Dayton, where I could see them playing Alabama in Dayton, which would be kind of a home cooking game since Xavier's only about 50 miles from University of Dayton Arena. And that would be a very good storyline for the first four. But we will have a special show on March 17th on Selection Sunday. I will experiment with being live to talk about who's getting in, who's out, and who got the shaft. So Sunday evening, somewhere around 6 Eastern, we will have a live show, and we'll see how it works. As the teams are selected, I'll be filling out my bracket, and we'll talk about who's in, who's out, what the region of death is. It's a Hoodwood Hoop special. Make sure you're along for the ride, because it's gonna be a lot of fun. We will take our final timeout of the day and come back with Phat Dap Head Slap and the final word from the Wood as Sports from the Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight and opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
Rounding third and headed for home here in the Hoodwood, I am KJ Green. We'll finish up strong with Phat Dap Head Slap and the final word from the Wood. The Phat Dap this week goes to Princess Jasmine's favorite college basketball team. Northern Kentucky University Norse made the NCAA tournament for the second time in 3 seasons, beating Wright State 77-66 in the finals of the Horizon League tournament earlier this week. I give them that because they were once a Division II powerhouse just a few years back. Then they made the jump to Division I, and then after a couple of years in the Atlantic Sun Conference, moved to the Horizon League and have quickly worked their way up to becoming a top power in that league as well. They will be making their second NCAA tournament appearance in school history. 2 years ago, they played Kentucky in Louisville and lost 79-70, and played very honorably for a team that was making its NCAA debut. Last year, they won the Horizon regular season title, but lost in the tournament. This year, they shared the Horizon League title and beat their conference co-champ, Wright State, in the final. So they're going back to the tournament, and the Hoodwood wishes that school that's close by, good luck in the NCAA tournament. They could be a dangerous team. And they went 26-8 this year, and they are just waiting to see where they're going because they have their golden ticket to the dance. Head slap of the week goes to New York Knicks and New York Rangers CEO James Dolan, who banned a fan in MSG who dared suggest that he sell the Knicks. Now, the Knicks have been abysmal over the last few years and haven't made the playoffs since 2013 and are, I would say, one of the top candidates to get one of the top players coming out of college, be it Zion Williamson or RJ Barrett of Duke. There's a lot of good players that are set to come out this year, and the Knicks will more than likely get one of these players and ruin them like they've ruined a lot of other promising players. But James Dolan, when suggested that he should sell the team, got mad at the fan and told him he was banned from Madison Square Garden. Is this man so egotistical and so thin-skinned that he can't handle fan criticism? Don't answer that. We already know the answer. It's a big fat yes. James Dolan's a clown. Someone who has inherited his money from Charles Dolan, who was the founder of Cablevision, and now has banned fans who dare criticize him, has told MSG Media that they are not allowed to criticize the Rangers or the Knicks when they play bad. He fired Marv Albert from MSG, longtime ace play-by-play announcer for the Knicks, because he was critical of the Knicks' play. All he wants is lollipops, rainbows, and sunshine, which ain't a lot of it if you're a Rangers or you're a Knicks fan. Neither one of these teams are worth anything. Head slap to James Dolan, who's too egotistical to be self-aware of how bad his teams are. Maybe he should sell the teams. And now, without further ado, let's go with the final word from the Wood. Was he wrong? Was Russell Westbrook wrong for his reply to the idiot fan in Salt Lake City? Russell Westbrook was fined $25,000 for his profanity-laced outburst to a fan in Salt Lake City during the Thunder Jazz game earlier this week. Now, Westbrook might think that this money is well spent, as the fan, Sean Kiesel, was banned for life from the Vivid Arena in Salt Lake City. Kiesel allegedly shouted racist taunts at Westbrook, who replied with his own emotional invective. Now, to be certain, Russell Westbrook can be boorish and prickly at times, if not almost all the time, but what Kiesel said was not innocent, and it wasn't playful jabs or taunts. It was very, very malicious. I will not repeat some of the things that Kiesel said, because there's no place for that in the Hoodwood. Now, fellow Thunder teammates Raymond Felton and Patrick Patterson backed up Westbrook's account of the altercation. Meanwhile, other Jazz players defended Westbrook, including former teammate Thabo Sefolosha, who now plays for the Jazz. Also, Jazz stars like Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell backed Westbrook in his defense and saying that the taunts, even though Mitchell claims he has never heard anything like that, have no place in the game. Jazz owner Glenn Miller came out before the Jazz Timberwolves game on Thursday with an emotional plea to the fans to act in the highest manner possible, and that there is a strict code of fan conduct that will be enforced. Now, Gobert and Mitchell backed Westbrook, though they've claimed they've never heard racist taunts, did say they sympathize with Westbrook, and they have heard disrespectful comments, but not racial comments, to visiting players. Now, that said, while I'm not a fan of the outburst, I totally understand it. A player can just take so much verbal abuse. And I'm not talking about, Westbrook, you're a bum, or Westbrook, you can't play worth nothing. No, when you start bringing a man's family, when you start bringing a man's race, when you start degrading the man, that's where you get to the point where you've had enough and you snap. Now, I'm not advocating what Ron Artest did in 2004, running into the stands because someone threw a beer at him. While that was stupid and was not justified, it was something that did not need to be done on the fans' part. But I got why he was so angry, and I get why Russell Westbrook was so vocal. I've been courtside at NBA, WNBA, and arena football games. I've been close enough to interact with other players, and even players that I weren't fans of. Even with those, I was respectful. Now, I made the mistake of hollering at Cheryl Swoops at a WNBA game. Nothing vile, nothing nasty. I just said she was killing us. Killing us, meaning the Minnesota Lynx. Cheryl Swoops responded with 5 straight baskets, swishing every one of them and looking at me courtside and blowing me a kiss. That shut me up real fast. Now, the comments were blowing out the Lynx, as they usually did back then, and I felt like crap because I fed the fire of a great player. I never said anything derogatory to an opposing player again. But there's a fine line between heckling, calling somebody a bum, or even telling them they suck, and using racial invective or referring to family, especially deceased or ailing ones. There's no place for it in any sport. And though the owner of the Jazz did make a public plea to the fans at Vivint Arena the other night for decency, this is something that really shouldn't have to be told. The players are in the game, are there for our entertainment. True. But they are not beholden to us for public derogatory statements. Shane Kiesel is suing Westbrook because he was banned from the arena. But this will go nowhere. Kiesel is learning this lesson all too hard now. Maybe the ill-spoken words of James Dolan in my head slap that he uttered to the malcontented fan in New York would have been better suited to this knucklehead, who won't be able to ever go to an NBA game again. Enjoy watching the games on TV. And that is the final word from the Wood. With the music coming up in the background, you know that means your time in the Hoodwood is just about done, and I thank you for your visit again this week. The email for the show is kjgreen@blackbanditproductions.com. Please send me emails on show topics. You can ask me questions, you can have comments, you can send me criticism. I welcome your correspondence, and I try to respond to every email in a timely manner. And you can catch this podcast on a number of sites, including iTunes and Google Play. The show site itself is hoodwoodsports.podbean.com. And it also has previous shows listed there, and I'm working on getting other links and other interesting stuff there as well. I'm also on Facebook at Black Bandit Productions Enterprises. There's links to the show there as well. I'm on Twitter at KJGreen20 and KJGreenBB, as well as YouTube, and I'll tweet anything that people say. So that's that, fellow sports fans. Until next time out in the Hoodwood, I'm KJ Green. 30.
Sports from the Hoodwood
is a Black Bandit Productions and